The screech of tires tore through the silent morning as a yellow bus hurtled down the narrow highway, its engine coughing and roaring like a wild animal. Inside, a group of children clutched their seats, wide-eyed, their laughter long gone, replaced by a trembling fear that no playground could ever teach. The driver's hands gripped the wheel with a white-knuckled desperation, and every so often, his gaze flicked to the rearview mirror, haunted by a shadow no one else could see. Outside, the wind carried the distant roar of engines, not far behind. 30 silhouettes cut across the horizon, the sun glinting off chrome and leather, moving with a precision that spoke of years spent together, of loyalty that transcended words. The bikers' faces were masks of determination, their eyes fixed on the bus that carried innocent lives in danger. Inside the bus, a little girl pressed her forehead to the glass, watching the trees blur past, her small fingers tracing the condensation like a fragile heartbeat. She didn't understand why the world had turned so dark, why the very person meant to protect her had become the source of fear. A boy beside her whispered a name, hoping it would summon help from somewhere beyond the metal cage they were trapped in. The driver's breaths were shallow, uneven, a storm of anger and something darker lurking beneath. He muttered under his breath, words the children couldn't hear but felt, a promise of chaos, a threat that made their stomachs twist. Every second stretched into an eternity, the road ahead like a narrowing tunnel with no escape. And then came the sound, a low, thunderous growl that grew louder, vibrating through the asphalt, shaking the trees, rattling the frightened hearts inside. The bikers were close now, 30 souls moving as one, each engine's roar a heartbeat of justice. They weren't just chasing a bus, they were racing against terror, against time, against the kind of darkness that threatens to steal childhoods. In that instant, everything changed. The children felt it, a flicker of hope igniting in their eyes. Someone was coming. Someone who wouldn't wait for the world to notice. Someone who would stop at nothing to make sure they were safe. The chase had begun. The little girl, Amara, had always been full of life, a spark of curiosity in a world that often demanded silence. Her laughter could light up even the grayest of rooms, and her brother, Sammy, just 7, idolized her every move. But the past year had been different. Their mother worked 2 jobs, often leaving them under the care of someone she barely trusted, hoping that the routine of school and home would shield them from the harshness of the world. It wasn't supposed to be this way. The driver, a man named Rafiq, had seemed ordinary at first. His warm smile and gentle tone had convinced the parents that he could be trusted with children's lives. But masks can slip, and beneath Rafiq's calm exterior lay a brewing storm of anger and instability. He had been growing restless, his temper flaring over the smallest inconveniences, minor delays, noisy chatter, questions from children. Each incident had been dismissed as impatience, something that would pass. But it hadn't. One afternoon, a parent noticed bruises on Sammy's arm, quickly explained away as an accidental bump. Another time, Amara came home crying, mumbling about being locked in the bus storage while Rafiq ran errands. Their mother's heart sank, but without proof, she felt powerless. Every attempt to report him had been met with bureaucracy, with shrugging shoulders, with wait and see. The world she trusted to protect her children had failed. And now, that failure was screaming down the highway. Rafiq's behavior had escalated dangerously over the past week. Parents had begun to notice odd stops, missing check-ins, and vague excuses. A message from another worried mother had been forwarded: "He's not safe. Watch your kids." But by the time anyone could intervene, Rafiq had grown bold, reckless, and unafraid. He was no longer hiding his intentions, the mask was gone, leaving raw menace in its place. The children, unaware of the full danger, tried to follow the rules, sit quietly, obey, don't make him angry, but fear clung to them like a second skin. Amara held Sammy's hand tightly, whispering small reassurances that neither of them truly believed. Every twist of the road, every glare from Rafiq's sharp eyes, deepened the knot of terror in their stomachs. Meanwhile, the parents' frustration had turned into desperation. Phone calls, emails, even visits to the company managing the bus service yielded no immediate solution. And just as they realized the severity of the situation, Rafiq had taken control fully, accelerating down a deserted stretch of road, intent on escaping accountability. The children's cries were muffled by the bus walls, their small voices trapped, just as hope seemed a distant memory. Yet, somewhere beyond the horizon, a group of riders had sensed the injustice, the urgency, and the helplessness. They were ready to intervene, to confront the fear that no parent could face alone. They didn't know these children personally, but they understood one thing with absolute clarity: innocence must be protected, no matter the risk. The stage was set. A battle of courage versus recklessness was about to unfold, and the children's fate hung in the balance. The bus roared down the winding highway, each mile a drumbeat of rising terror. Rafiq's grip on the wheel tightened, knuckles whitening as his temper boiled over. He barked orders at the children, punishing them for the smallest sounds: a dropped pencil, a whispered question, a shiver of fear. Their muffled cries echoed off the bus walls, swallowed by the steel frame and the relentless engine. Outside, the world seemed oblivious. A few early commuters glanced briefly, then continued on their way, unaware of the danger unfolding before them. But every second that passed made the situation more perilous. Rafiq had begun to swerve recklessly, overtaking cars in blind fury, his mind clouded by frustration and something darker: control. It wasn't just anger, it was a hunger for power, a terrifying need to assert dominance over the helpless. Inside, the children huddled together, trying to make sense of the chaos. Amara whispered small prayers, her soft voice trembling, while Sammy clung to her side, shivering not from cold but from fear. Each sudden swerve of the bus made their hearts leap, their young minds imagining the worst. Panic was spreading like wildfire. Even more alarming, Rafiq had begun to notice the distant roar of engines approaching. His eyes flicked nervously to the mirrors, a storm of confusion and rage mixing on his face. He accelerated, desperate to outrun whatever was coming. But the bikers behind him weren't ordinary pursuers. They were coordinated, their movements precise, their resolve unwavering. Each biker understood the stakes: one mistake, one moment of hesitation, could cost innocent lives. As the bus barreled forward, the threat intensified. Trees blurred past in a green smear, the road twisted unpredictably, and the children's sobs grew louder. Rafiq's voice became erratic, his commands harsh and frightening. It was no longer just a ride, it had become a cage of fear, a high-speed nightmare that threatened to spiral completely out of control. And just as despair began to settle like a heavy fog, a flash of chrome appeared in the distance. 30 bikers, engines howling like thunder, were closing in. Their presence sent a shiver down the spine of the driver, a force unstoppable, relentless, and fueled by justice. The line between hope and fear had never been thinner. The horizon trembled with a low, rolling rumble that grew louder by the second. Chrome glinted under the rising sun as 30 bikers appeared, cutting through the morning haze like a wave of steel and leather. Dust kicked up from the asphalt, swirling around their tires as if the very earth recognized their mission. Engines screamed in unison, a deafening symphony that announced justice had arrived. At the forefront rode the leader, a tall figure with a scar across his cheek and eyes that had seen too much darkness yet refused to bow to it. He scanned the approaching bus, his jaw tightening at the sight of the children pressed against the windows, their faces pale, eyes wide with terror. Without a word, he signaled to his riders, and the formation tightened, their motorcycles moving as a single living organism, circling, flanking, and closing in on the target with precision. Inside the bus, Amara pressed her small hands against the glass, her breath fogging the window as she caught the first glimpse of salvation. "Look," she whispered to Sammy, "someone's coming." For the first time in what felt like hours, hope flickered in their eyes. The bikers didn't just ride, they communicated without words. Each glance, each subtle nod, carried a lifetime of trust built on countless missions, countless battles fought together. Their bond wasn't forged in comfort or convenience, it was forged in loyalty, courage, and the unshakable belief that the vulnerable must be protected. And today, that belief had a face, a mission, and a purpose. Rafiq noticed them too, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. Fear finally cracked his composure, his earlier rage now tinged with panic. He swerved sharply, trying to shake them off, but the bikers anticipated every move, responding instantly. 2 on the left flanked the bus, another 3 on the right kept pace with deadly precision, and at the rear, their engines roared like thunderclaps, sealing the driver in a cage of justice. The wind whipped through the bikers' hair, their leather jackets snapping like flags of rebellion against injustice. They weren't just saving children, they were reclaiming control over a world that too often let fear dominate. Every twist of the road, every heartbeat, pushed them closer to the moment when courage would confront cruelty head-on. And then, with a masterful maneuver, the leaders signaled the formation to converge, boxing the bus in. The engine's roar echoed across the hills, a sound that made the heart race and the spirit ignite. Rafiq's panic peaked, his mind frantically calculating escape routes that didn't exist. The children, meanwhile, clung to one another, their fear tempered now by awe. These weren't strangers. They were heroes, united by purpose, driven by morality, and ready to face whatever darkness Rafiq carried inside. In a world that had failed these children for too long, 30 riders had become the guardians their innocence desperately needed. The showdown was imminent. Rafiq's panic turned to fury as the bikers closed in, engines screaming like predators surrounding their prey. He swerved violently, trying to break free, but each maneuver was anticipated, blocked, and countered. The bus became a cage on wheels, a metal trap from which there was no escape. His face twisted with desperation, beads of sweat running down his temples as the roar of 30 motorcycles filled the air, echoing across the empty stretch of highway. Inside, the children's cries had evolved into a mixture of fear and awe. Amara gripped Sammy's hand tightly, whispering, "They're here to help us." The boy's eyes, wide and tear-streaked, reflected the sunlight bouncing off the biker's chrome, and for the first time, he felt a flicker of hope amidst the chaos. The leader of the bikers signaled a synchronized move. 3 riders accelerated on either side, carefully matching the bus's speed, while another 2 pulled in front, forcing the driver to slow down. Engines revved, tires screeched, and the wind carried a deafening chorus of mechanical justice. With precise coordination, they created an unbreakable perimeter, forcing the bus to come to a stop on a straight stretch of road, where escape was impossible. Rafiq's hands trembled on the wheel as the leader dismounted, boots hitting the asphalt with a thud that resonated like authority itself. His voice, steady and commanding, cut through the chaos, "Step away from the bus. Now." The driver hesitated, eyes darting to the surrounding bikers, each one a symbol of resolve, each one a wall of unyielding courage. He could feel the weight of 30 lives determined to stop him, to prevent the darkness he carried from harming the innocent any further. The shouting, the revving, the metal walls of chrome and leather, it was all too much. And then, with a final, shuddering breath, he raised his hands, defeated, powerless against the unity and purpose of those who had chosen to stand for justice. The doors of the bus swung open, and one by one, the children scrambled out, their small feet hitting the asphalt, their eyes blinking in the harsh daylight, and their faces lighting up with a mix of relief and disbelief. Amara ran into the leader's arms, burying her face against his chest, while Sammy clung to another biker nearby, trembling but alive. Tears streamed freely now, not of fear but of overwhelming gratitude. The bikers checked each child, ensuring no one was hurt, no one left behind. Rafiq was handed over to the authorities, his rage now impotent, his plans undone by courage and coordination. The children's parents arrived moments later, rushing forward with relief and disbelief, enveloping their children in embraces that had been missing for far too long. But the bikers did not linger. They mounted their motorcycles silently, engines growling, and with a final look at the children now safe, they accelerated back down the road, leaving behind only the echo of justice and the memory of a rescue no one would forget. The sun hung high in the sky, casting golden light over the scene, a light that now seemed to belong to innocence reclaimed and fear vanquished. For the children, the day that had begun in terror ended in hope, guided by 30 guardians who chose courage over comfort. The children huddled together on the roadside, their small hands still trembling, but their hearts lighter than they had been in hours. Amara smiled shyly at the leader, her eyes shining with gratitude that words could never fully capture. Sammy, clutching her hand, felt a newfound courage swell inside him, as if the presence of 30 strangers turned heroes had given him a shield against the fear that had haunted him. Parents rushed forward, their tears mingling with laughter, holding their children tightly, whispering promises that no harm would ever come again. The bond between parent and child felt sacred in that moment, yet all around them, an invisible force lingered, the sense of protection left behind by the bikers, guardians whose names would remain unknown but whose actions spoke louder than any words. The bikers had already mounted their motorcycles, engines purring in unison, a quiet symphony of departure. They didn't linger for applause or recognition. Their satisfaction came from one simple truth: the children were safe. The danger had been stopped, and justice had been delivered, not through noise or threats, but through courage, coordination, and an unwavering commitment to do what was right. Amara waved, and the leader tipped his helmet slightly, a silent acknowledgement of the connection forged in the fire of fear and hope. Sammy waved too, his small face lighting up as the convoy of 30 engines roared to life, disappearing down the highway in a cloud of dust and determination. They left behind no accolades, no headlines, only memories of a day when ordinary people chose to become heroes. The sun bathed the road in golden light, painting the scene with warmth and hope. Children who had faced unimaginable terror now walked hand in hand with their parents, hearts lighter, spirits unbroken, carrying the memory of courage that had arrived on 30 roaring motorcycles. In that fleeting, magical moment, the world felt just a little safer. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like this video, share it with friends, and subscribe for more powerful stories. Because sometimes, heroes don't wear capes, they ride in on engines, ready to protect those who can't protect themselves.